And at the nephew's house, the first thing we see again is Scrooge's nephew just laughing, laughing, laughing. And obviously it kind of builds an intrigue for us, actually wondering why is he laughing. And kind of sets a kind of very warm tone to what's coming. And then again, Dickens, the narrator Dickens takes this kind of very informal kind of approach in talking to us, and says again, if you, so again he's trying to put us in the scene. Every time he kind of refers to us with you, again he's trying to drop us in the scene. It's just a really interesting point of using that second person narration. And he gets to say, and again, like, he just talks again about how lovely and blessed this person is, and obviously he's always going to come across that way because of his support of Christmas, earlier in his speech that made Bob Cratchit clap. So again, everything he does, is going to kind of have that extra tinge of kind of like godliness, or kind of real warmth and lovability about it. And obviously, this is a person that he thinks everyone would want to meet, make their acquaintance. So there's other people there, and he's still laughing. And he said Christmas was humbug, as I live. And so they all can't believe that he's mocking Scrooge in like the gentlest way possible for saying, I can't believe he thought Christmas was a humbug. And then he says, and he believed it, like it was some kind of delusion, some kind of ridicule. Now that's really interesting. If you want to take it to a certain degree, you can say, well, Scrooge, or to some people, now we say, well, Scrooge is losing his mind now, seeing ghosts. But obviously to some people, maybe from a very orthodox point of view, at least to people like the Cratchits and people like his nephew, Scrooge has lost his mind by not celebrating Christmas. So you can actually kind of take that argument if you want, and actually just showing what people's perceptions are of him, and obviously how no one really envies Scrooge, etc. And we'll see in the next day a lot more. So more shame for him, etc., etc. And obviously Scrooge, just kind of hears all this thing, going around about him. People are talking about him, and he's not, he's just kind of like, finding out what people think about him. And then he says, well, he's very rich. And then that's really interesting. His wealth is of no use to him. He don't do any good with it. And it's not even that he says, well, obviously, because we know that Scrooge doesn't spend it on anything, but maybe his nephew doesn't have any close proximity with him to actually know what he spends it on, what he doesn't. But he probably knows from hearing about, he doesn't hear about him doing anything charitable. He doesn't make it, or sort himself out first and foremost, sorry, and then he doesn't do anything charitable with it. But notice that the charitable idea, not doing any good with it, comes first. Obviously, so he's saying to him that that's the most important thing, and he hasn't the satisfaction of thinking that he's ever going to benefit us with it. And again, here's just kind of a joke. And again, other people don't like him, but Scrooge, his nephew, kind of sticks with him, and he says, I feel sorry for him. I couldn't be angry if I tried. Who suffers? Himself. And again, there's the idea of remorse and things coming back to haunt you, like obviously with the case of Marley and all these kind of things, in regret, remorse, etc., 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 etc. He won't come dine with us, but he loses a dinner. So he's just saying that the things he does, he actually spites himself. But obviously, that's obviously a reference to it could be a reference to he wouldn't get a dinner at the Lord's table again for his turning himself from people like us, or goodly people, or people from God, and he actually loses out on a place when with Jesus' side, etc. In heaven. The reference there, or the link that you can actually make there is justifiable. Indeed, he loses a very good a very good dinner, and so here we go. They're all just kind of going on to talk about it, and he just, again, we get another kind of message from Scrooge's nephew just about how great Christmas is, etc., etc., etc. And he just shows you how charitable he is. And again, it's that idea of turning the other cheek. And again, this Christian vision is being reinforced. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not, for I pity him. He may rail at Christmas till he dies, but he can't think him better of it if I defy him. And he finds me going there in good temper year after year and saying, Uncle Scrooge, how are you? Even if it only puts him in vain to leave his poor clerk, £50 at something, poor clerk, sorry, £50 at something, and I think I shook him yesterday. So here he actually says, like, maybe he's finally, dropped something through, something's getting to him, etc. And then it's really interesting to see, while he has these kind of ideas, his family, they turn around, they laugh at this idea of just shaking Scrooge. So I mean, imagine Scrooge, obviously, like, Scrooge is watching this, how he's feeling, like, he's like, wow, people think I can't be changed, people think I have no way of changing, when obviously he's in the midst of a change. So again, it would be quite looking at it from his point of view, it's really, all these things are actually really going to drop with him. So then they all start playing games, etc. And Scrooge joins in, and he just seems kind of really kind of happy, and he's having fun, and it just goes, it kind of goes, just kind of, he's happy, he's enjoying it, etc. He's kind of really taking part. And then there's some other kind of game that they start playing, and again, he's really enjoying it. He kind of cries to the spirit, like to just stay, stay and play the new game, etc., etc. So they start making weird animal noises, or someone starts making weird animal noises, and then it could have been any kind of animal, and Fred's doing the impression, and then someone guesses at what impression he's actually doing, and then someone says, it's your Uncle Scrooge, and everyone just kind of bursts out, and he just becomes this figure of ridicule, and he has to obviously sit there and watch it. And he then, there's another kind of ironical toast to Scrooge, etc. And he goes through, and Scrooge has actually enjoyed it so much, he would have pledged the unconscious company in return and thanked them in an audible speech if the ghost had given him some time. So Scrooge has actually watched all this, and even though he's learning a lot about himself, he's not learning about himself just from what the ghost is telling him, obviously what they're showing him, and obviously people's reactions to him in real time, etc. And so then they move again along, and so they move along again, and then they go through to when it starts to get just a little bit darker. And as they're going on to a place, Scrooge looks at his robe, and he says, "Excuse me, but I saw something strange. What does I see come from you? Is it a foot or a claw?" And the claw reference there could be something, obviously something kind of sinister coming through. And he said it might be a claw because there's flesh upon it. And then out of his robes, obviously in this spiritual world, two children come out, and obviously they're wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. But they're not children per se. These are they're the personification of two things, and they kind of look untowardly. It's not something you really want to look at, but they still kind of have their humility because they still have their place in the world. And Scrooge stares back appalled because he says he wanted to say something nice about them, but he couldn't, and so he wonders who's to blame for this. He says, "Look, are they yours?" And he says, "Actually, these are the creation of man." And again, it's just kind of the religious idea that man creates a lot of the kind of negativity and bad in the world by not following God's commands. And they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. The boy is ignorance and the girl is want. Beware them both and all of their degree, but most of all beware this boy, for on his brow I see that which is written is doom, unless the writing be erased. So basically he's saying, people being greedy and selfish is really bad for humanity, but people being really ignorant in many different ways is bad for humanity. Now, it doesn't just say specifically towards the plight of the poor, because the message is further than that. It's ignorance of the scripture, ignorance of the people in need, ignorance of the things that you can do, ignorance of your neighbours, ignorance of so many other things, obviously like 101 things that you could actually kind of tie into that, and that's obviously really important. And then again, Scrooge again still feeling, he's not really kind of catching the metaphor straight away. He actually says, "Look, have these kids got no refuge? Have they got no one to help them?" And then again, he's just kind of hit with his own words. Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? And again, Scrooge is just kind of really knocked back by that. we don't need Dickens doesn't need to tell us it again, though, and that's actually quite important and interesting, because he doesn't tell us again because simply we've had it once, so we know what the reaction is actually going to be, and then the pace is really picking up here. So the spirit just disappears, and we don't get to go back to the bedroom. We don't get to kind of like see Scrooge be like, oh my god, I'm so surprised. Here he just kind of looks about the ghost, and the ghost is gone, and then the stroke, the bells have struck, and then he lifts up, and now he sees a solemn phantom, the last ghost. And obviously the idea here of the seriousness coming through, of the solemnity of the ghost that's coming through, draped and hooded. So the hooded thing there obviously shows that he's going to be a lot less friendly than the other ghosts, etc., coming along like a mist along the ground. So obviously it's eerie and creepy, and it's coming towards him. So we know that kind of here everything's going to kind of catch up and accumulate here. And you'll notice in the next stave the tone is very different than in the previous staves.